Most organizations in Illinois put community solar in the same mental category as traditional solar, and that could not be further from the truth. I just sat down with 4 different clients from 4 different industries last week, and each of them had this baseline assumption. My name is Dakota Knuckles-Malone. I co-founded Community Solar Authority. We've been doing this for 8 years. We've unlocked access to over $50 million in future energy savings. And by the end of this video, you will understand what mental category community solar belongs in and how you can take advantage of it to capture available energy savings. Let's talk about the single assumption that's costing you big. The reality is that it is 2026 and organizations are already looking at ways to improve their business, enhance sustainability, and have an energy strategy that actually works. Every single one of these organizations I just referenced has already had conversations on on-site solar. By the time I showed up to talk about community solar, the mental category was already formed. Solar is a capital project. It's complicated. It takes years. We don't have room. We're not ready for that. And here's the problem. Community solar isn't any of those things, but it's thrown into the same bucket instead of being looked at as a low-hanging fruit energy strategy to help you access energy savings. It's not commercial solar. It's not a rooftop install. It's not a capital commitment. You don't own any infrastructure either. You don't change your utility. You don't spend money up front. So how is it the same thing? The answer is it isn't. The way that community solar works for large energy users is that you subscribe to an offsite solar project in your local utility grid. So you're sharing to an output of that solar project, and based on that output, you receive bill credits on your bill that are simply put worth more than what you spend for them, and you get to keep the difference as energy savings. All right, before I walk you through the week, here is the distinction worth understanding clearly. With commercial solar, you're financing infrastructure, you're investing in an installation on your property, you're betting on performance over a 15 to 25 year horizon with long ROIs, and it requires capital, an internal project owner, and a long-term facilities commitment. Plenty of organizations have on-site solar and it works, but for the rest, where it doesn't work, there's a completely different solution in the state of Illinois, and that's community solar. So with community solar, you're subscribing to a solar farm someone else owns and operates. You're accessing lower energy costs without spending any money and without installing solar. I wrote an article on why this works in the state of Illinois and why it's not too good to be true. The short of it, state governments in Illinois and New York have set aggressive renewable energy mandates. To hit those targets, they need community solar farms built. To get those farms financed and subscribed, they need large energy users committed to a project's output up front, because without the large energy users, the project doesn't get built, and without the project, the state doesn't hit its targets. So the state designs these incentives with these large energy users in mind, and you can see how it's totally different than traditional solar. 2 different buckets, community solar, traditional solar, and both of them offer unique opportunities. It's ultimately why you have to consider community solar in a totally different light. Let me tell you about these 4 clients so that you can understand what happened when they finally understood it. All right, so the public school board. We've been working with these guys for a few months, and last week, officially, they voted to approve our community solar rollout. This is exactly how adoption of the program should happen for public schools. We educate the leadership, the math gets presented, and then the board makes a call. No capital line items, no facilities projects, no 6-month implementation timeline, a vote, a signature, and savings that start for these guys by the end of the year. School districts are actually ideal anchor tenants. They're typically a large user, investment grade through their bond rating, and they carry a stable load, meaning they're going to be around for the next 10, 15, 20, 25 years, no problems. Predictable consumption is what community solar projects need to close financing, and anchor tenants with investment grade credit help tremendously. They also face real budget pressure. Every dollar saved on electricity is a dollar that could be going back into the classroom to improve the quality of education for the kids. And lastly, there is stakeholder accountability. Boards and communities want fiscal responsibility and sustainability alignment at the same time. Community solar delivers both. It took us a few sessions to educate stakeholders who are not familiar with community solar to get them understanding how it's different than traditional solar. Ultimately, they were able to differentiate, make a decision, and capture available savings. All right, so this next one is different in scale completely. I sat down with the Illinois Community College Board, so not a single school, but a system-level conversation. What would it look like to enroll every community college in the state of Illinois into community solar? And my perspective is this should be a conversation happening across all state agencies. They represent the ideal anchor tenant, no different than a public school as an example, and it would be a huge win for the state of Illinois to participate in their own program and show the continued expansion of it. The conversation was very exploratory and really just early stages, but the fact that it's happening shows you where institutional-based thinking is heading in the state of Illinois. They are no longer only considering on-site solar as an example because they know there are additional options, and on-site solar only typically solves a portion of their needs. Definitely excited to see where this one goes. All right, so this next one is the meeting that I keep coming back to because it was with a casino. We met with a high-level executive, and obviously he's been pitched on all things sustainability over and over again. Efficiency upgrades, demand response programs, commercial solar opportunities. He had heard most of it, and he had moved on from most of it as well. But when I walked him through community solar, his response was a variation of things I've heard over and over again, but his was the cleanest. He said, "This is different than anything I've ever been pitched, and this seems like it's actually going to work for us." So why does it work for a casino? Well, it's actually the same reason it works for everybody else. Large, stable energy offtake. Yes. No appetite for capital projects or long-term facilities commitments. Check. Energy costs that directly affect operating margins. You bet. And a good news story that's increasingly relevant to stakeholders. Done. This category error had kept each of these organizations out of a program that was suited perfectly for them. All right, lastly, let me tell you about this large manufacturer. And unfortunately, this doesn't have a happy ending yet, but it does tell a valuable story for anchor tenants. This is a large manufacturer, actually in New York. They had reached out through a strategic partner, and they wanted to talk about community solar. The problem was we had already talked to this organization and sourced them projects over a year and a half ago, which they never executed. So this time when we revisited, we had the conversation again. We showed them the numbers. They were ready to move forward. The problem is they waited, and now we have no available capacity in the state of New York. So we had to put them on a wait list. But allow me to explain. Availability is tied to project development cycles. New York legislation has changed, for the worse, in my opinion, on community solar. Ultimately, it is a supply-constrained business. Tons of people want to access lower energy costs without spending any money and without installing solar, but when there aren't any available projects to subscribe to anymore, you wait. New York taught our team that urgency isn't manufactured in this industry. The lesson here is that the Illinois organizations who are actually executing and moving forward with community solar are going to be the ones that capture that available solar farm. The ones that hesitate may just miss out completely, like this manufacturer. All right, let me weave the thread between all four of these customers. The mental category of community solar was wrong. It's a completely different opportunity that deserves its own consideration. This is exactly how we help our clients every single week. We get them educated, we source them available projects, and we make sure that they can implement it into their energy strategy. If you're a large energy user in Illinois, the question isn't, will this work? In fact, it's not even a question of, will this work for my industry? The real question is, are you ready to consider this for your energy strategy? Hey guys, really quickly, if you do want to consider this for your energy strategy, we will give you a hand-tailored 90-day rollout map for community solar. Our team's unlocked access to over $50 million, and if you want to use the same roadmap for all of our past clients with your organization, you can go to communitysolarauthority.com. I also encourage you guys to connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/in/Dakota Malone. Thank you guys for tuning into this episode, and we will catch you on the next one.